The air inside Velvet Room wasn't oxygen. It was perfume. Money. And secrets. That's the first thing you learn working nights. You don't breathe here. You inhale other people's appetites. The bass climbs your spine like a rumor. Glas laughs under dim chandeliers. The world blurs into diamonds and smoke. And I walk through it all with a tray balanced on my palm and a smile I put on like war paint. My name is Lena Moretti. 25 on paper. Closer to 40 in the bones. I know how to glide. How to disappear. How to dodge wandering hands and questions that lead nowhere good. The trick is to count the steps. Count the drinks. Count the hours until you can go home and be a person again. I tell myself, I'm here for the tips. For rent. For the hospital bills that turn my mailbox into a haunted house. I tell myself I'm here because this is the fastest way to keep my sister's lungs from filling with fear. I don't say out loud that part of me likes watching the powerful pretend to be gods. Only to learn they're just people with nicer cologne. The Velvet Room is a church for ambition. And I've become fluent in its prayers. It's a good night if nothing spills. If nobody asks my name, like they're buying it. It's a good night if I come home with ankles that still bend and a voice that hasn't broken from, of course. And right away, the rules are simple. Make eye contact just enough to be real, and not enough to be an invitation. Laugh lightly. Never loudly. Move, like you have a secret. You'll never tell. I'm rounding a corner with 4 martinis, and a promise not to think about how much those olives cost, when a hand catches my wrist like a hook in water. The splash of liquid is cold down my sleeve. I smell gin before I smell him. He's smiling the way rich boys smile when they think they've invented the night. His grip tightens, like it's a joke he's told before. Don't run off, he says, tugging me closer. I tell myself to breathe. I tell myself to be small. Sir, I need to deliver these. I say, soft, smooth. The voice that de-escalates, the one that turns men into manageable problems. He leans in, a breath heavy with money and impatience. You can deliver them later. No, I say, and it lands like glass on tile. His eyes sharpen. The music keeps moving. The room keeps laughing. It's always like this when trouble slips a hand into your evening. Everything else pretends not to see. My heart ticks fast. But I've had worse. I've gotten free before. I shift my tray. Angle my shoulder. Thread the needle between him and the table. And then another voice enters the room. Not louder. Just deeper. Like a bass note you feel inside your ribs. Let her go. It isn't a command. Not exactly. It's a decision already made. The hand on my wrist opens by instinct. Like it knows the body it belongs to isn't the most dangerous one here. I turn because not turning would be its own kind of attention. And there he is, the name, people say with their mouths, close to the glass, Damien Carver. He looks like the kind of man the city builds around. Tailored dark suit like a shadow with edges. Eyes that take inventory without apologizing. There's no jewelry announcing the money. The fit of the watch does that for him. People talk about him like a myth. Like the Velvet Room is just his living room with better lighting. I've seen him in glimpses before. A rumor at the top of the stairs. A silhouette behind frosted glass. Up close. He's a study in quiet decisions. The drunk patron is still talking. But the air has turned. We're just having a conversation, he says, half laughing. Like it's good to be friendly. Damien doesn't bother with the man. His eyes stay on me. Which should feel like a spotlight, and somehow feels like a door opening and closing at the same time. Are you all right, he asks. It's a simple question. It does not belong to this room. I'm fine, I say, the reflex beating any truth that might be waiting behind it. Good, he says. Then to the world. Without raising his voice, Enjoy your evening. The drunk patron trips over an apology and a chair, and manages to leave both behind. The crowd relearns how to breathe. Somebody laughs too loudly to prove they weren't listening. The moment folds itself up and slips into my pocket like a note I'll find later and pretend not to keep. I deliver the martinis with a hand that doesn't shake. I should forget it, because forgetting is part of the job. But forgetting becomes harder when I pass the bar and the bartender nods in a way that means orders changed from above. And a soft voice arrives at my shoulder. Ems. Moretti. I don't remember telling anyone my last name. Maybe I signed it on a form. Maybe the walls here have ears. I turn and find him again. Less distant this time. Up close. He smells like clean paper and winter. Up close. He's younger than the rumors, and older than the room. He nods toward the hallway. Not a command. An invitation he already knows. I'll accept. After your shift, my driver will take you home. That's not necessary. I say, with the polite shape of a refusal. I take the bus. The bus will be waiting. 2. He says. And there's almost a smile hiding in the corner of his mouth. No arrogance. Just a kind of sentence that ends. Because it's finished. Not because it's forced. It's late. Accept the ride. I want to argue on principle. The principle is thin and tired and lives in a one-bedroom with overdue notices on the table. I nod because the night is already longer than my legs. Thank you. He studies my face like he's reading something written in small print across my cheekbones. You shouldn't have to thank people for basic safety, he says. And then he's gone. As if he never had to be here, to be in charge of it. The rest of the shift is muscle memory. Step. Smile. Pour. Move. The song changes. The crowd softens and slurs. I catch myself reaching for my wrist, where his voice let me go. I catch myself thinking of winter. Of paper. Of the way a man can make the room obey, with a sentence that doesn't touch anyone. I catch myself looking for him, and then stop. Because nothing good comes from being seen, looking for Damien Carver. When the night exhales and the lights confess how sticky the floors are. I clock out and trade sequins for a hoodie. The city outside is the cold version of what the club pretends to be. A black car idles at the curb. Not ostentatious. Just certain of itself. A man steps out of the driver's seat and says my name before I say hello. He opens the door like he's done it for me 100 times. Like every night in another life was this easy. I slide into leather that doesn't squeak. My bag sits quiet on my lap, like it's pretending to be expensive. The city rolls by. All streetlight and afterthought. I wonder how he knew my name. My exit. The timing of my shift like a heartbeat. He could count from far away. The wondering is a little terrifying, and a little warm. And I hate that I don't hate the warmth. I text my sister that I'm on my way. She sends back a heart, and a syringe, and then another heart, because her sense of humor belongs to people who have earned it. The driver doesn't speak except to ask what floor when we arrive. He knows that, too. Of course he does. Home is a small, stubborn apartment that smells like clean laundry and determination. Maya's awake. Sitting cross-legged on the couch under a blanket, she refuses to retire. Her laptop glows blue on her knees. She looks up and grins like the sunrise got upgraded. You survived, she says, closing the laptop. Any celebrities, any disasters, any rich people attempt to tip you with life advice. 2 out of 3. I say, dropping a kiss on the top of her head as I pass. I'll make tea. She watches me move. The way only a little sister knows the choreography of your exhaustion. You, okay, she asks. Gentle. Like stepping over glass. I pour water and stall. Long night. I want to say a man said my name, like it was a fact. I want to say, the world shifted half an inch under my feet, and now my kitchen doesn't line up the same. I want to say nothing happened, and mean it. Maya lets me dodge for a while. She's good at letting me pretend I'm a wall. When the kettle clicks, she says, bills came. The envelope is on the table, heavy as a brick. She tries to sound casual. She almost makes it, okay. I say, because that's the shape of survival. I flip the envelope. Scan numbers built like mountains, and deadlines built like cliffs. My throat tightens. Not with surprise, but with the math of it. Every line item is a staircase. I'll climb twice. We'll figure it out. My SS. Too bright. And I love her for it, and hate the word we for lying about how much of this has been mine to hold. Yeah. I say. We always do. I make her tea the way she likes it, too sweet. Too hot. Because she wants to feel it warm her all the way down. She sips and watches my face. The room is a little crooked. My sleeve still smells like gin and apology. The quiet between us is the safest place I know. My phone vibrates on the counter. A sound that doesn't belong here. In the clean corner of our life, where only nurses and neighbors call. I check the screen. Unknown number. No area code I recognize. I let it buzz itself out, because good things knock, and bad things barge. It buzzes again. A third time. The persistence feels expensive. Spamaya asks. Probably. I lee. The fourth buzz arrives with a text that lands like a coin in a fountain. Small and heavy at once. You shouldn't walk home alone. Lena. I read it twice. Then a third time. Because the words are simple, but the voice behind them isn't. I can hear it. That calm that makes doors open in crowded rooms. It's somehow more protective, for not pretending to be sweet. He doesn't say he's worried. He doesn't say he cares. He states a fact about the world as if reminding me gravity exists. I type and erase. Who is this? Feels childish. Thank you feels like surrender. I settle. On a safari. New phone. Who's this? A minute passes. Then someone who prefers you get home safe. No punctuation. Like the sentence put itself there. I look at Maya. At the chipped mug in her hands. At the blanket. She refuses to retire. I think about how easily the night could have taken more than my sleeve. I think about the ride. The driver who knew my flaw. The way my name sounded in a stranger's mouth, like he'd owned it once, and was returning it. Everything okay? Maya asks. Hair falling into her eyes. Yeah. I say. And it's mostly true. I tuck the phone under a pile of mail like I can bury what it means. Just work. She nods and yawns and unfolds herself to shuffle down the hall. I like when you get home before I fall asleep. She says, leaning on the doorframe of our shared life. It makes the night seem shorter. I'll try to make all the nights shorter. I tell her. And we both pretend I can. When her door clicks, the apartment gets very quiet. The kind of quiet you notice only when the day lets go of your throat. I wash the same mug twice. I stack plates we've already stacked. I pretend I'm not listening for another smile in my pocket. The phone lights up again without buzzing. As if even it knows how to be discreet at this hour. Another text if you need a ride after your shifts. The car will wait. Not will be. Will wait. Like waiting is the natural state of things. Like he has all the time in the world, and some of it belongs to me. My first instinct is the same as always say no. Draw a line. Build a wall. Keep the world on the other side of the peephole. My second instinct is new and unwelcome, say yes. Because you're tired of pretending you can outrun the dark alone. I type nothing. I turn the phone face down and stare at the ceiling. like it might have answers written on it in glow in the dark paint. The room smells like tea and old paint, and the lemon cleaner I use when I need to fix something. I can't. Beyond the window, the city hums the lullaby it knows by heart, sirens and tires and someone else's music. In the morning, I'll tell myself, the message was just a courtesy. The courtesy will feel like a leash if I let it. I'll say, I don't want anyone keeping tabs. That safety shouldn't show up with a price tag. I'll say I can handle a bus and a block and a broken streetlight. But right now, in the space where honesty shows up uninvited, I admit it being noticed by someone like him feels like a blessing wrapped in a warning. It feels like stepping under an awning and realizing the storm was bigger than you knew. It feels like a door opening and a lock clicking at the same time. I check on Maya one more time, because that's the habit that keeps the night from winning. She's asleep, face soft, breathing even. The world forgiving her for a few hours. I pull the blanket higher and whisper promises I can't afford to break. I go back to the kitchen and collect the mail and put it in a pile that used to be small and is now a skyline. I turn off the lights. The apartment shrinks to the size of our courage. On the counter, the phone glows once more. A single line that doesn't ask for an answer. Good night, Lena. No name. No signature. Just the kind of certainty that fills a room without needing permission. I don't reply. I don't sleep. I lie there and listen to the city pretend it can keep its secrets. And I tell myself, I don't want to know what it would mean if I said yes. That's the thing about nights that change everything. They don't announce themselves. They slip a hand around your wrist. And then a voice lets you go. And the mark it leaves is small enough to hide, and big enough to measure distance by. Somewhere in the dark, a man with a quiet voice and a dangerous calm decides, I shouldn't walk home alone. Somewhere closer, a girl with rent due and a sick sister decides not to argue with fate in the middle of a Tuesday. Tomorrow, I'll carry a tray like nothing's heavier than glass. Tomorrow, I'll tell myself I don't believe in omens. But tonight, the city leans in, and I can't help but think this is how stories begin, with a sentence that sounds like a promise. With a stranger who knows your name. With a breath that is not oxygen, but perfume. Money. And secrets. And the sudden understanding that you're inhaling, and you can't stop. They say apologies are just negotiations with better manners. When the hostess told me I was wanted upstairs, I already knew whose manners we were talking about. The VIP floor sat above the music, like a second sky, quieter, colder. All that heat collected and repurposed as power. I told myself I was going, because refusing would turn a ripple into a storm. I told myself he'd be on a call, and I'd drop a sentence into his ear and leave. I told myself a lot of things I didn't believe. He was waiting in a room that smelled faintly of cedar and restraint. There was a table laid with food I couldn't afford to pronounce. A single empty chair opposite his, and the kind of silence that knows exactly what it's worth. Damien had changed his tie. Or maybe the night had changed its mind about him. Either way, he looked like the answer to a question nobody brave ever asked. Dinner, he said, as if the word belonged to him. To apologize. For the way the other night went? For the way everything here can go. Apologies usually come with admissions. I said, because the only thing more dangerous than meeting him halfway was pretending I didn't know how. He studied me, amused and patient. All right. I regret that a guest mistreated my staff. I regret that you were the one who had to absorb it. And I regret that the world requires women to be polite in moments when men would be allowed to be loud. It was too practiced to be improvised and too precise to be empty. I sat because the chair would have looked lonely if I hadn't. You don't have to feed me to say you're sorry. I know, he said. This is for me. The first bite tasted like something I should save for later, and couldn't. He didn't fill the silence with questions. He let it stretch and soften, as if the room itself was learning my name. When he finally spoke again, the words came measured, like the first drops before rain. I grew up in rooms like this, he said. Different country. Same rules. People performed their loyalty over dinner. They traded favors like salt. My father taught me that power is the art of not needing to raise your voice, and the art of assuming everyone else will be grateful when you whisper. I said. His smile reached his eyes. But not all the way. That, too. What did your mother teach you? I asked, surprised at myself for asking it. To leave a place better than I found it, he said, without hesitation. She would say, if you're going to be the weather, at least bring good rain. And which are you? I asked. The weather, or the forecast, depends who's asking, he said. And why? He spoke about old money, without saying the phrase. About cities that bend for certain last names. About a grandfather who taught him chess on a board where pawns had their faces carved into frowns. He didn't brag. He annotated. He didn't confess. He curated. Beneath all of it, under the poise and the patience, there was a hum like a generator, unspoken violence running the lights. People think fear is the lever, he said, pouring water like it was as rare as the wine he didn't offer. Loyalty lasts longer. Loyalty can be bought. I said, fear is free. Fear is cheap. He corrected gently. That's not the same thing. Some men would have filled the air with flattery. He filled it with attention. Not the hungry kind. Not the kind that undresses. It was more like standing under a lamp that adjusts its brightness to your breathing. I kept waiting for the moment my skin would crawl. It didn't. It prickled with awareness in steadier ways, an inventory of the places I was seen and the ones I wasn't. You're not afraid of me, he said finally. Not a question. I don't have time to be. I said, I'm busy. With what, staying alive? I said, keeping someone I love alive. He nodded, like that was the only correct answer. You carry yourself like a person who understands math. How many hours for rent? How many tips for medicine? How many smiles before you get to stop? That's why you fascinate me. You don't know me, I said, and it came out sharper than I meant. You know my posture. I know the difference, he said. Most people don't. We ate. We didn't toast. He asked me what I studied, before life rerouted me. I told him about charcoal stains on my fingers, and light in old Italian cities. About how art was supposed to be the future, and then the future came early, and demanded cash up front. He listened like a person cataloguing proof that I existed before this place. Claimed me. It made me want to tell him nothing and everything, at the same time. When dinner ended, I didn't stand. He leaned back, and looked at me in that steady way that made the room lean with him. You're not a problem to solve, he said. I want to be very clear about that. Then why am I here? I asked. Why dinner? Why attention? Why do you know the rhythm of my nights? He could have joked. He could have lied. He did neither. Because most of the time, I am a problem to solve. You don't treat me like one. It's educational. And you, I asked. What am I supposed to learn? How to accept an apology? He said. And then, after a heartbeat, how to accept help without thinking it makes you smaller. The words were soft enough to pass for kindness. They felt like a key I hadn't asked for. I didn't sleep that night. Either. The next morning brought its usual liturgy coffee. Pills sorted into days. Bills sorted into despair. Maya joked until she didn't. I kissed her forehead and tried not to count the bruises on the month. By afternoon, The hospital called about a paperwork issue that sounds like a cliff, if you've never fallen off one. I took my lunch break to argue with a woman who deserved better than being the gate between us and the medicine. By evening, another call. Not a call. Silence. Then we've received the payment. In a voice that couldn't understand surprise, because the numbers were correct. I checked the patient portal because denial is a habit. The balance had been erased like a classroom board. At the end of the day, my phone chimed again with a message that refused poetry hospital account settled. Future treatments approved. Focus on your sister. I didn't need to ask who. The anger came fast. Grateful and ugly. Around the edges. Money in our world is a verdict. In his, it's a sentence that ends arguments. I left work early on a technicality. Nobody challenged and walked until the city lost count of my steps. I ended up under a sky, the color of a bruise, phrasing the fight in my head so I wouldn't miss. When I saw him next, I didn't wait to be invited. I found him at a table in a room that overlooked the city, like it was a painting. He'd hung himself. He didn't look surprised to see me. That made me angrier. You had no right, I said, before the door had decided to close. Disagree, he said mildly. But I understand the instinct. You think you can rewrite my life in the margins because your pen is nicer. I said, you think help is harmless because it arrives in silence. It's not. It's loud in my house. It echoes. He folded his hands like a teacher, waiting out a storm. Would you prefer I undo it? That's not the point, and you know it. He nodded. It isn't. The point is that you needed air, and I opened a window. You don't get to be the weather in my home, I said, hearing my own voice, shake and hating it. He considered me. The way a person might consider a locked door they don't want to break. You don't owe me anything, except honesty. The line found all the places I'd been storing the truth, and tugged. Ifelt me enger sjuder. Then steady. Honesty, I said. Fine. I'm furious, and relieved, and humiliated, and grateful. I hate that you could do in one day what takes me a month. I hate that you did it because you could. I hate that a part of me is breathing for the first time in weeks. That part of you, he said quietly, is the only part I was speaking to. Silence pressed its forehead to ours, and called it a truce. I looked at him. Then the way people look at bridges they're not ready to cross. Why me, I asked. Why this? I'm not special. I'm not a good investment. You are not an investment, he said. And something in his voice marked a line I hadn't seen. You're a fact. You exist. You should not have to turn yourself into a negotiation to stay alive. If I can make one part of your day cost less, I will. You make it sound simple. It is. For me, he said. That's the curse of people like me. Simplicity and its consequences. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to take the help and pretend it didn't weigh anything. I wanted to walk out and pretend the conversation hadn't moved the furniture in my head. But life loves mixed drinks. And mine is half stubbornness. Half need. He poured water. I didn't drink it. There's something else, he said. And the thread inside the word tightened. You deserve to hear it from me. Every instinct I had sent up a flare. What now? He looked at me steadily. A man in my organization disappeared last week. He took files that don't belong to him, accounts, histories, arrangements. He also took something that makes others believe they can touch the people around me. And you think that involves me? I asked, refusing the dreaded stage. It does, he said, because the man's name is Marco Moretti. The room reconfigured without moving. I felt the syllables hit old places, kitchen tables and folded flags, and the absence that took up so much space. We had to learn to walk around it. I heard my own echo before I knew I'd spoken. He's dead. He isn't, Damien said. He's been alive for years under other names. He worked for me. And now he's working against me. There are sentences your body rejects before your mind can argue. I stood, because sitting belongs to people who can afford to think. No. I said, because the word is a kind of prayer. No. You're wrong. I wish I were. He said. I had you watched from a distance after he vanished, not to threaten you, to see if he would try to use you. He hasn't yet. But others might. You knew who I was before you met me. I said. Before the hand on my wrist. Before the ride. Before the messages. Yes. He said. No apology. No victory. I wanted to see you myself. I wanted to make sure you weren't a door he'd left unlocked. And what was I? I asked. A window. A wall. A shortcut. A person. He said. A person I couldn't reduce. I didn't trust my legs to keep holding me in that room. I didn't trust my voice to say anything except the loudest version of goodbye. I left because sometimes that's the only control you have to be the one who opens the door first. The hallway tasted like metal. The elevator swallowed me. Fed me to a lobby that didn't blink. Outside? The city was suddenly all edges. I walked fast because anger looks like purpose from a distance. The phone in my pocket was a stone I wanted to throw into a river. I turned corners until the night ran out of places to hide me, and then I felt it, that thin thread you don't see until it tightens. Someone was behind me. Not close. Close enough. I told myself to breathe. I told myself to duck into the deli. To call a cab. To call a friend I didn't have time to maintain. I kept walking because sometimes you move to prove you can. The footsteps matched mine like a mirror. My phone buzzed once. A single pulse. Don't go home. Keep moving. Left at the corner. I didn't ask how he knew where I was. I didn't have room for the kind of pride that makes headlines. I turned left. The block stretched longer than physics allows. A figure peeled off from a shadow and became a person with hands in pockets and bad intentions. Another appeared on the far curb, looking nowhere and everywhere. Keep moving. The phone said, Tirahet. Headlights cut the corner with surgical precision. A black sedan glided to the curb like it had been practicing. The back door opened to air conditioning, and a voice that matched the text, Lena. I didn't argue. A hand steady. Callosed. Professional guided me inside, with a kind of care that mistakes itself for gentleness. The door shut, in time for the night to find its teeth. The first gunshot didn't sound like the movies. It sounded like a decision. The second turned the sidewalk into evidence. We have her, someone said. Into the front seat, the car surged forward, as if the street had been waiting for exactly this wait. I didn't look back. I didn't need to know which shadows had dropped their knives, and which had kept them. I kept my eyes on the seam where the door met the window, and counted my breaths, to prove I still could. Are you hurt? The driver asked. Voice all business, and no panic. No, I said, and felt my body take inventory to make sure I wasn't lying. Good, he said. Mister. Carver said to keep you moving. Of course, Hadid. I whispered. Not sure if I meant to sound grateful or exhausted, or both. The car ate distance like it was starving. My phone buzzed again. A final line that threaded the needle between promise and order. You're safe. Stay with them. I'm 2 minutes behind. Safe is a little word with a big echo. In that moment, in that moving room, with city lights smearing into comet tails outside my window, it felt like a door closing against the wind. It felt like surrender and strategy shaking hands. It felt like the first time in a long time that danger wore my name like a shield instead of a target. People talk about fate, like it's a rope. I think it's a series of very small hands on your sleeve. Redirecting. Insisting. Rescinding. Until you look up and realize you took a path you didn't mean to, and you can't imagine another. The world I'd been keeping at a dignified distance had stepped into my lane and matched my stride. And somewhere between the first course of an apology and the second gunshot of a warning, I understood the theme of the chapter. I'd wandered into danger. Feels like safety when the world has never protected you. The city receded. The silence in the car was trained. Disciplined. Alive. I let my forehead touch the cool glass and told myself one true thing. The only truth that mattered enough to survive the night. I wasn't alone. And I wasn't sure whether that terrified me or saved me. Then the last light on my phone dimmed, and the night lowered its curtain. They say safety has a smell: clean linen, citrus, money. The penthouse smells like all three. Like a life wrapped in glass, too thick to hear the street. From up here the city looks tame. Lights arranged in polite rows. Danger reduced to a glittering idea. Maya walks barefoot across rugs that could sponsor a hospital wing. Her laugh returning to her, in a softer version from vaulted ceilings. She says it feels like a hotel in a movie. I say hotel's end. And she makes a face, and tells me to let something be easy for once. Damien keeps a respectful distance, which is its own kind of closeness. He moves through the rooms like a promise he hasn't asked me to accept. Speaking quietly to people who appear and disappear, like well-trained wishes. Food arrives without a doorbell. A doctor arrives like a rumor, with credentials. The pills travel from bottle to palm to Maya's smile, with none of the panic I've learnt to swallow. Ease is suspicious when you've never been on a first-name basis with it. At dusk he finds me by the windows. The city pouring itself out below us, like a string of confessions. His reflection stands next to mine, neat and composed, as if anxiety can be ironed. You're safe here, he says, not to persuade me, but to leave a sentence where I can find it later. Safe from what? I ask. And for how long he studies the skyline. Your father took something he shouldn't have. Not money. Not even the kind of secrets that buy new cars. The kind that end dynasties. If you show them to the right light, destroy who I ask. You. He shakes his head once. Rivals. Families. I keep from your doorstep by keeping them away from mine. He took names and dates and strings that lead to bombs. He took proof. The word sits between us, like a chess piece, that refuses to be anything but what it is. Proof ruins plausible deniability. Proof takes myth by the throat. Why would he do that, I ask? Before the better question, why now? Damien's answer arrives carefully. The way you place a fragile thing, you respect too much to lie about. Leverage. Insurance. And for you, it lands in me. Sharp and bright. And then it burns. For me, he believed he could trade what he took for your exit from this world. Damien says, he believed he could buy your freedom. I want to laugh. It comes out as something else. He left me a long time ago. Freedom would have been a father who stayed. He absorbs it without flinching. I know. No. I say, hearing the heat in my voice. You know the outline. You don't know the days. You don't know the small ways leaving keeps happening. Even when the person's already gone, he doesn't apologize. He doesn't excuse. You're right. We stand in a silence that isn't empty. The city keeps blinking, as if it can outstare the truth. I need to see him. I say, if he thinks he's buying me anything with all this, he can pay in explanations first. I can't let you walk into a trap, he says, the protectiveness in his voice, smoothing itself into conviction. He's not the only one who wants what he has. You are leverage to all of them. I am also a person. I say, it's a concept I'm practicing. Something like a smile flickers and goes, I'm aware. Then treat me like one and say yes. He doesn't speak right away. Patience pools in the room. He's measuring outcomes. Who bleeds where? Who calls whom afterward? I've learned enough to recognize the mathematics of power. The way it pretends to be mercy when it's careful. At my insistence, he says finally, we do it my way. Public enough to make people think twice. Quiet enough to keep the wrong kinds of eyes away. My people will be a breath away. You get 5 minutes alone with him. If anything tilts. Itilhara. 5 minutes. I echo. Trying the number on my tongue. I'll make them cost. Maya watches me dress. Like I'm going on a date with a hurricane. You don't have to go. She says. Not quite believing it herself. I do. I say. So I can stop going in my head. She takes my hands. Small and warm and stubborn. Then come back. That's the entire plan. I tell her. And I try to make the joke reach my eyes. Night gathers itself and falls cleanly. The conservatory waits like a secret. The city tells itself. After hours. Glass ribs. Green breath. The ghost of humidity trapped under domes. The path inside smells like rain. And the memory of tropical countries. The air holds my hair in its palm. I step into the planted twilight. And feel the world hush. The leaves holding their breath with me. He's older than the last picture. I kept pretending not to look at. He wears a different name on his face. But my bones remember the angles. Marco Moretti. A man taught me how to hold a pencil. And a stranger stands here, holding my history, at arm's length. Lena. He says. My name. A confession. He never earned. He says, my love, like he thinks the years will fold for him, if he sounds sincere. Don't. I say. And it's smooth, because I practiced it for 14 years. He nods. Chastened by a daughter he abandoned. You look like your mother. You look like a rumor. I say. Why am I here? To give you what I can. He says. To tell you that leaving was the only way the men I owed wouldn't come for you. To tell you I watched from far enough away to be useless. To tell you I stole what I stole, so you could leave this world, instead of marrying it. Anger is a fast car. Grief is the road that makes it feel slow. You could have left with us. I say. Each word, the pebble I want to throw through the glass. You could have come back. You could have called. You could have been a voice at the end of any line. I thought I was keeping you clean. He says. And shame rusts his tone. I thought. You thought wrong. I say. I know. He answers. And that hurts more than a denial would have. He reaches into his jacket slowly. Not like a man who wants to survive. But like a father who wants to finish this sentence. He pulls out a small black drive that looks like a harmless thing, and holds it like something that bites. This is enough to end men who believe they can end anyone. He says. It doesn't belong to me. It doesn't belong to him. It belongs to whoever needs to stop bleeding first. Then, give it to me. I say. Because if I can't fix the past, I will at least redecorate the present. His eyes search my face. Then travel to the shadow that my knowledge casts. He's close. Always. I say. He nods. Unsurprised. I never wanted you to live under his weather. Then you should have stood between me and the storm. I say. Before he can answer. The plants themselves tense. It's a feeling. A change in the shape of the air. Pressure shifts. The garden is a lung inhaling danger. Footsteps muffled by soil. Metal, lifting its head where no metal should sing. I don't see them first. I hear what silence becomes when guns enter it. Marco flinches. I take a step without deciding to. Then a voice cuts the humidity with the cool of winter. Enough. Damien moves through green, like he invented straight lines. Behind him, the kind of men whose suits are tailored to hide decisions. He reads the room in a glance and adjusts its temperature. "Your 5 minutes are over," he says to me. Then to my father, "And you just ran out of luck." But luck is an enthusiast. It likes to be dramatic. The first shot tears the leaf of a plant that grew here under glass to avoid a war elsewhere. Glass cries in a high note. Sound widens. The world becomes angles and instinct. I am on the ground without remembering how I negotiated with gravity. Damien is a wall I didn't know I had. He covers me with the precision of someone who has practiced not dying in difficult rooms. "Return fire," answers the question. No one asked out loud. The air smells like sugar, scorched too long, and the iron inside a mouth. Marco dives, like he rehearsed this part in dreams. He wouldn't admit to. "Stay down," Damien says, which is the closest he's come to begging me for anything. I wasn't planning a waltz. I say, the humor landing in us, like a future memory. Another shot, another leaf collapsing into its own veins. The botany of fear is specific. I can name every second. In the shift between one bullet and the next. Time stutters. Damien's body jolts in front of me. A small savagemotion, controlled by pain that doesn't ask permission. "Damien," I say, and my voice breaks on the wrong syllable. His hand finds mine brief, fierce, and squeezes like a vow. "I'm all right." He lies, then switches to truth. "I will be," shouts. A thud, the kind of impact that belongs to heavy intentions, meeting heavier consequences. Someone curses in a language that blooms and dies in the same breath. The fight contracts, then expands, then realizes it is losing interest. Retreat announces itself in footsteps that forget to be careful, in the messy grace that follows survival. I realize my father is moving, not toward us, away. He tosses the drive. It arcs briefly like a cheap star, and lands by a pot of something with cruel thorns. "Find me when you're safer," he says. And then he is a gap, where a man used to be. I want to chase. To complete the sentence of a lifetime. To collect the rest of a story I own a stake in. I don't move, because the hand in mine is warm and slick, and too important to trade for a chase scene. Damien breathes deliberately, like he's commanding his lungs. The men around us pull the scene back into the shape of a room. Weapons vanish into fabric. Someone says clear, because rituals matter. Even after chaos. Later, the night releases us. The penthouse's clean air feels like the world apologizing for itself. He sits on a couch built to convince people to forget their sharp edges. His shirt is open where the doctor needed access. The wound is a reminder, and a refusal. Maya tucks a blanket around him with the authority of a nurse, and the tenderness of a sister who has practiced care like an art form. He looks paler, and somehow more present. As if pain has stripped away anything performative, and left only the truth of him. Morning decides to be kind. It arranges itself in sheets across the floor, and offers us a softer version of the city. The doctor leaves behind precise instructions, and a frown pretending to be neutral. Maya drifts to the kitchen to wage a gentle war against worry with eggs and tea. I sit on the coffee table, close enough to hear the nuance in his breath. He watches me. Watch him. The corner of his mouth, lifting like he'd smile, if smiling didn't require moving something that hurts. "Your father made his choices," he says. Voice low. Every word weighed. "Now you get to make yours." The sentence lands without ringing. It doesn't push. It doesn't pull. It opens a door and steps aside. What if I don't trust my instincts, I ask. They're tired, and they like to dress up as fear. Then trust mine, he says. And his eyes don't blink, while he hands me the most dangerous thing he owns, his certainty. Borrow them until yours catch up. I won't belong to anyone. I say, because the old vow still stands between us like a beautiful, stubborn fence. You won't, he says. Not even to yourself. Some days. But you will stand next to whoever earns it. I let the air move through me. I let the night finish, leaving my bones. Choice is heavy and light in the same handful. I picture the drive on the table. Small as a tooth with a city's bite marks on it. I picture my father's retreat. The way he threw something toward me, like he thought, a gift excuses an absence. I picture Maya sleeping easier in a world that has made room for her breath. I'm staying. I say, not because you saved me, because I'm done, pretending I can save myself from everything. He nods. And something unknots in his shoulders. He looks suddenly younger. Not in years. In relief, he reaches out. Not like a claim. Like an invitation. Dance with me. He says, voice hoarse enough to make humor an act of courage. Before the world finds another reason to tear us apart. I look at the bandage. At the wince. He hides badly. You're injured. I'm motivated. He says, the ghost of that winter smile returning. Let me have this small defiance. So we do. The simplest rebellious thing two people can do in a city that plans their endings for them. We stand. His hand finds the small of my back like it's curious. Not entitled. My palm finds his shoulder. Warm and human. Under linen. There's no music. Just the metronome of his breath, and the city's distant hymn. We sway without choreography, inventing something gentle in a life that keeps rehearsing severity. I rest my cheek against him carefully, where it won't hurt. Where it will, the room slows. The morning leans in through glass. Maya appears in the doorway, rolls her eyes affectionately, and disappears, like a blessing, pretending to be a tease. We are bruised, which is another way of saying proof of life. We are not finished, which is the only way to keep beginning. Danger doesn't leave. It lingers in the corners like a cat that has claimed the furniture. Love doesn't behave. It taps the glass when it wants to come in. But here we are, dancing anyway. Because survival deserves ceremony, and choice deserves rhythm. His hand tightens just enough to feel like certainty. Not control. Mine returns the pressure. A translation of equal. The city watches and pretends. It has seen this before. Maybe it has. Maybe every story is just two people asking the same question in different languages. Will you stand with me when standing hurts, when the moment ends? It doesn't break. It dissolves into something we can drink later. When the night asks us what we're made of, he leans his forehead to mine, whispering a thank you that tastes like relief. I answer with a breath that promises nothing except the next one. If there is an ending here, it's only a pause. The credits in my head roll over a drive that wants a key. A father who owes me hours he can't afford. A sister who will sleep longer than fear planned. A man who bleeds and still says my name like a vow with all its legalese removed. The title writes itself across the light pooling on the floor. Velvet Shadows, Episode 1, The Night She Was Seen. And for the first time in a long time, I believe it. Not that I was seen, that I let myself be. If you felt something tonight, if this story pulled you in the way, it pulled me. Don't slip away. In silence. Hit that like button, so I know you're still breathing after that ending. Subscribe if you want to see what happens next. Because this was only the beginning. Share Velvet Shadows with someone who loves a little danger mixed with desire. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done if you were me? Would you trust Damien? Or walk away? Your story matters here, so let's write the next chapter together.